Would you like more bookings? Well, who am I to tell you no? Let's go get more bookings together. With these 10 new pricing rules that you will learn in this video, 2026 might be your best year ever. These rules are necessary because the world has completely changed around short-term rentals in the last 12 months, but you know that. I don't need to tell you that. Hosts on this channel have made billions of dollars in short-term rentals. If you're new here, welcome aboard. Subscribe and hit the bell. Every video is educational. And to start off hot, we're going to do some myth busting for number 1. Properties that use a minimum rate in their softwares will need to change their strategy around their minimum rates. Now, softwares have come a long way. You might know this, that you can have a dynamic minimum rate per season where your minimum's $175 in the winter and $250 in peak season. But this is the wrong approach to your pricing strategy if you're going to follow these new rules. And hosts, they don't know this stuff. There's nowhere to learn this. What the new strategy is on your listing, instead of having a lower minimum price in slow season, which would increase your likelihood of getting booked, instead, we're going to keep that minimum price in slow season, and we're going to do something that I call clipping. I'm going to show you one move from my greater clipping arsenal that you can use in your property right now. This applies to Airbnb specifically because Airbnb has multi-day discounts that are 2, 3, and 4 night discounts. VRBO just has weekly discounts, but other channels like Booking.com may give you promotions for 4-day stays too. So we can mix it up here. But the example, let's use Airbnb, and you can open up your multi-calendar to get this done. Let's say your slow season is February and you've got your minimum at 200, but you know that Price Labs wants your minimum at 160. That's 20% off, isn't it? And with Airbnb's rule sets, what you can do now is instead of accepting a 2-day or 3-day stay for $160 when Price Labs bottoms you out, you can instead bottom out at 200, accept a 2-day or 3-day stay for 200, and then you can decide if it's at 4 days or if it's at 5 days or if it's at 7 days or 14 days that you will go down to 160. This gets more and more useful the further away your slow season is, because you can get a booking 7 months in advance. And in some slow seasons, we'll take the booking 7 months in advance as long as it hits a target price. So what I do is I clip to make sure that I still have a healthy base minimum price where no one can go and steal 2 days for cheap. And then I'll work in 7 and 14-day discounts using a rule set. There is so much to the clipping conversation. We could do a 6-hour webinar on clipping strategy alone. And if you want to learn more about clipping, for now it's in Cracking Superhouse. There's a link down below. Talk to my team. It would be great to have you. But let's move on to number 2, which is myth busting about the fact that whole homes make a higher ADR than private rooms. Wait, what? Yes, exactly. You heard what I said. Now, houses do make more money. Almost always. But there's a time where your 4-bedroom or 5-bedroom house has no bookings on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Let's say you're in Chicago or you're in the Carolinas, like in Charlotte or somewhere like that. And it's 10 days away. And at 10 days away, you're very much not likely to get a booking for 14 guests. And you can drop that rate down and drop that rate down and get booked at maybe 200 or 175, but your price should have been 400 or something of the sort. And this is exactly where private rooms start to make more money. You have 5 doors inside of one. And each of those 5 doors could rent for $45, $75, or $100 a night. Market to market, this can really change. Some listings make $125 or $250 per night for a private room. It's insane in some places. But even at a responsible number, let's say $60 a night, you get all 5 rooms booked for $60 a night. That is $300 of ADR. And if you've ever had a night on your 4 or 5 bedroom house that you've had to go below $200 to get booked on a weekday, and you're also afraid of parties because you're renting out the whole home, private rooms are a great separate strategy. And let me give you a bonus on this. You get all the algorithm benefits of staying booked if you lock all these together on Airbnb. You have your parent listing, and what a parent listing is the bigger one that then has child listings, which is each individual room. When these little rooms get booked, those days count as occupied. Airbnb has baked into their algorithm how often a listing gets booked into how interesting or satisfying it is. This means that if your private rooms get booked, Airbnb can tell that your bigger listing's not available because the smaller listings got booked, and your bigger listing doesn't get punished for not having a booking that day, because it does. And you may have just picked up a hidden strategy inside the split strategy that we're talking about now. Sure, you make more money with the split strategy. You can make an extra $20,000 a year on these unused days. But going through slow season, having a higher occupancy percentage than your competitors, you're going to rank better in the spring going into peak season, which will top off your nightly rate better than your competition. How cool is that? I hope you're excited for these other 8. I'm super stoked to give them to you, and it's not the fact that I've had 3 cups of coffee today, but the coffee, it does help. Please like the video as I double tap this. Number 3, the new rules to follow is that adding amenities, or the enemy method, doesn't increase your ADR. That is not the truth. And for some of you, I know this is a hot take, but I will explain. Let me show you if I can even. Let's go travel anywhere on the planet through the Airbnb platform, and let's take a look at some listings. Sure, listings with a pool do make more money. Listings with a hot tub do make more money sometimes of the year, but that's not exactly why they make more money. Let's check some other boxes that you may not relate to, like pet friendly, or no step access to the front door, or that there's a barbecue grill in the backyard. These technically also are amenities that you add to your listing, just like a hot tub or a pool. You may also know that you don't care about the barbecue grill for this trip, or the EV charger for this trip, or you don't have any pets coming. So the fact that the listing is pet friendly does not matter. It even could be a net negative for you if you don't like pet dander. So if we can agree that value is in the eye of the beholder, that does mean that these amenities don't just raise your price arbitrarily. You cannot add a hot tub or add a grill or add a sauna and say, now you have to pay me $100 more a night. We don't get to make demands in the Airbnb space. By adding amenities, we do have a more attractive product, and sometimes we connect. We hit a home run. There's a guest that needs no step access. They want to have a hot tub. They need to have a grill. They need to have a certain number of beds. And our listing fits that one very specific thing that they need. On a case by case, customer to customer basis, one amenity may make us more money, but it's not every guest. It's way more volatile than we understand. And this starts to influence things like Thanksgiving. You might have a listing where PriceLab says you should make 30% more money because it's Thanksgiving, but your table only seats 6. So next thing you know, you raise your rates for Thanksgiving. No one books for you because you can't host. You don't have a kitchen island and your place only sits 6. Airbnb and PriceLabs didn't understand how nuanced the holiday was. Your neighbor down the street with a slightly more ugly property than you has a table that can seat 10, and they get the booking that you could have had. And PriceLabs thought that you should be worth more money because you had the hot tub, and the hot tub raised the rates in the pricing algorithm. But for Thanksgiving, no one wanted a hot tub, they wanted a long table. I hope that this makes sense to you. And if it doesn't make sense, ask in the comments. This is a long conversation that we can have. It's more than just a pricing rule. This will affect your investment strategy. If you ever pick up a new Airbnb in the next 2 years, this is a primary tenet of my investment thesis. And we can have that conversation if you want. And I really hope you're hearing me on what I just said, because it leads into number 4, which is what everyone else is doing or what everyone else thinks is the right path is often very much the wrong path. We just gave an example of how PriceLabs will raise your rate because you checkbox an amenity. You're more valuable on paper, but you're really only more valuable on a guest-by-guest basis. These pricing softwares, this example included, tend to do something called herding, like sheep or like cattle or like cats. And herding cats would be more effective in this strategy because some cats will go one direction and some the other. This is essentially game theory. People need to deviate from the pack in order to pick up the bookings that no one else is getting. And this can be huge for you. If you start using PriceLabs or Wheelhouse not to know what your prices should be, but to know what everyone else's prices are going to be, this is like seeing the Matrix. You're like the Neo now of Airbnb. This relationship between level 1 changes that PriceLabs or Wheelhouse or Guesty GPO does, and level 2 changes, which is the changes that you make knowing what everyone else is doing, they zig you zag. These changes mean you will make more money in peak season. You'll be more expensive than you should be. So that way you don't get booked quite yet because you want your competition to get booked, and that thins the field. And when there are less suppliers, but people come to buy stuff and they realize there's not very many suppliers left and everybody's expensive or bad, you're one of the few left over, you get to charge more money because you're one of the not bad listings. And your price, whether it's reasonable, is now contextualized against the less listings that are left. If you had a good price in peak season versus 1,000 listings, you might get snatched right away. And you look like a good price in a sea of 1,000 listings. But if that goes down to 300 and your price is about 20% higher than it should have been, that 20% higher can all of a sudden look like a reasonable price because of all the super expensive stuff that's priced way too high and then the trash stuff that's barely below you in price. If we listen to Price Labs, you would be the same prices as everybody else, and if your listing was better, arguably, you'd get booked first. And getting booked first in peak season is not what we want by the new rules that we're playing in 2026. And if this one was interesting to you, I have good news, my friend. I have a whole course on pricing strategy below for free. Click that link and you can watch a ton of these videos. And we have deep dive videos on deviating in peak season and deviating in slow season, taking advantage of the fact that everyone gets herded together with a pricing software. So watch that course after this video is over. And number 5 is a near neighbor to what we just talked about, which is going more aggressive in peak season as we wait for our competitors to get booked up. There was a rule that we're breaking all of the time now, which is that longer lead time leads to higher ADR. There's a couple other examples I can give you aside from tip number 4. Your lead time rates to be effective would look like an arc. And because of this shape, if you wanted to get a booking more than 5 months in advance, you'd have to give a discount from your best rates, your very best rates. That's why Airbnb has the early bird discount feature baked in, so that way you can lower your prices a little bit and get a booking ahead of your competition. We have something called a golden window, which is the very top of where that ball reaches before it starts coming back down. Where the golden window is does change per listing. The bigger the house, or the harder it is to get to a destination, like fly internationally instead of drive locally, the further away the golden window gets because people tend to more plan. The more people you can sleep and the harder it is to get to your place are the two primary elements of your golden window being further away. That means a downtown apartment here in Dallas or in Austin or Chicago, that golden window for a studio apartment might be 10 to 30 days out, where the house was 100. You can find this golden window by going into your transaction history, pulling all those bookings into an Excel sheet, organizing them by lead time, which takes a little bit of Excel spreadsheet wizardry to do, but you can do it. And then look for the highest ADRs and see where the ADR starts to come down. You can find the ranges of lead times that give you the best ADR. You already have the data. How cool is that? And one of my next pricing videos will be a deep dive on lead time by itself. It's such a big topic, you need to know everything about it. So stay tuned for that video, subscribe, click the bell. But we're gonna move on to number 6, which is pace. There's a misunderstanding about pace in this industry because softwares have misrepresented pace because they tried to make a pace for a person with one property. Pace does not exist for a portfolio of one. And what softwares have done is they've turned it into a horizontal plane where they say, if you're booked more than 30 days in advance, between 30 and 60 days, the more bookings you have in 30 to 60 days, the more we can raise your rates or lower your rates. And this is called an occupancy-based strategy in Price Labs. And this one feature is absolutely trash. It is the worst feature you could ever decide to use because adjacency, it's a feature that Price Labs has in its software as well. They stole it from Wheelhouse when I consulted for Wheelhouse and they built adjacency into their engine. So now we have contradicting features is what I'm saying. Let's take a real example from maybe your portfolio too. It probably looks like this. Between 30 days and 60 days out. Let's say you have some bookings. Imagine what that might look like. Thursday, Friday, Saturday here, Friday, Saturday, Sunday there, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday here. You have 3 bookings. What's left over? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? These days are hard to book, and harder yet now that your weekends are gone. So why would a software say, you got booked for 12 days in March because of spring break, and now we're gonna raise everything else that's not popular? It just doesn't make any sense, does it? I promise I will teach you pace, but let me finish this tip. That means that when you have a booking checking out on a Tuesday should actually go down in price, because that Tuesday can't get booked with Friday or Saturday before it. Or if you have a booking starting on Thursday, Wednesday has to be cheaper too, because it can't get booked with the Friday to come because Thursday's already booked. It blocks the way. Anytime that your weekdays are next to book weekends, those prices should go down. So pricing software is making this pace-like feature is actually ruining the industry. And we want people to do that. We want them to make this mistake. Don't tell your neighbors if they're using this occupancy-based feature in Price Labs. But what pace is let's say you had 20 properties in the same market, like on the same block even, and you see 3 of your Saturdays, the 17th of never, get booked way far in advance, way farther in advance than normal. Alarm bells should be going off. We're getting booked on this one Saturday way sooner than normal. Or let's say 4 months from now, you've got to run a Tuesday, Wednesdays that get booked, but it's always the 7th and the 8th. It's the same exact days. Pace is a pillar. And if you notice that Tuesdays are getting booked way faster than they should on one day, we ask ourselves why. What is the demand spike happening here? Sure, it could be Taylor Swift, it could be a football game, it could be some sort of convention, something like that. But no matter what it is, we know that there's more demand. And so then the rules of pace say that if you have 20 days stacked up and 5 go away, the other 15 go up, as long as it's faster than normal. If you have 20 days stacked up and only 2 are booked, and it's like super last minute and you should have like 10 booked, then the prices go down. Pace is up and down per individual day, whether they're booking at the right pace of lead time. So yes, it's not just about raising your rates when your occupancy for a range is better. It's also about lowering your rates when you realize that you were too optimistic. Pace can tell you hot or cold in both directions. I do have a secret hack for Pace that you can use to steal from your competition, and that's in my course down below. Watch those videos. You're gonna love it. You're gonna absolutely love it. Number 7, we're going to have another hot take here, which is that you make more revenue when you have longer minimum night stay requirements. And this is a relic of the VRBO world, okay? Houses do make good money on weekends, and they tend to not make so good money on weekdays. And in a normal environment, this might be true. If you can force a 5-day stay where Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday get booked, great. Where all things being equal, you could have got a Friday, Saturday, and that was it. In these scenarios, we're not going to break the wheel, all right? We're not Daenerys Targaryen. But there's another scenario that if we're overly loyal to this truth, we're going to lose a ton of money. And why most hosts miss this is it seems like an identical reason. Let's say there's a special event like the Super Bowl, Carnival, the World Cup, which is coming. I know you guys are excited about that. And let's imagine that Leonardo DiCaprio or someone like that wanted to come in to watch the game or to come in for Carnival. Now, the baseline settings of all of your competitors, we talked about herding before, everybody's gonna do the same silly thing. They will make their settings a 7-day minimum for Carnival or something like that, maybe 5. And they'll be $3,000 for 5 nights. What if I told you that Leonardo DiCaprio wanted to fly in with his helicopter, he'll drop $5,000 on 2 nights, and he just wants to leave, but he doesn't want to sign a 5-day booking contract? That would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? So instead of us approaching special events with this rigidity, the 5-day minimum at the rate, you can double your prices and then give a 50% discount for 5 days. And you can give like a 10% discount for 2 days and a 30% discount for 4 or something like that. You take this slow, you can nail this, and I know you're smart enough to do this. You can have $2,000 for 5 days, that's $400 a night. You can have $2,000 for 4 days, that's $500 a night. You can have $2,000-ish for 3 days, $700 a night is $2,100. You can have $2,400 for 2 days, $1,200 a night. And you can use percentage discounts for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and 5, and create those rates. So now, in hospitality, you aren't telling people no, you're just telling them how much. And some people value time more than money, and they will pay you the extra for the convenience. Now, let's slow down and breathe a little bit. I just gave you 8 big tips, and I got 2 other big ones to go. And I want to summarize something at this point so you don't forget it. If you could just write it down. Write one word down, nuance, or conditional, maybe. If you don't like the word nuance, conditional is fine too. Every technique that we develop for pricing strategy is applied to a scenario, to solve a problem, to gain more advantage for a moment of time. There is an overarching rule to these 10 rule changes. You cannot just play one game. You cannot just follow one strategy. You cannot just do one thing all year. If you think about the 8 that I just gave you, you're realizing that we're changing our strategy for season. We're changing our strategies when we find out that our competitors are doing something silly and we can just pick up easy money. We're changing our strategies based on our lead time, if we're confident in our calendar or if we're not confident in our calendar. We're even changing our investment strategy to make sure that our listings can get better nightly rates and we know when we can get those nightly rates. You are becoming a better host by the minute right now. Too many of us in the short-term rental space are more passive, hands off. We want it to be easy. We don't want to do this extra work. And by you doing this extra work in this video, your revenues will be 30% higher than any of your unknowing competition. That includes your unknowing competition that uses Price Labs. Because I have a warning for you, Price Labs is going to break everything this year. And I'm going to tell you that at the end of this video, so stick around. We've got what I'm going to call a 3-body problem. And leading into number 9 is that we cannot just simply charge per person. We should not be using a per person increment in any of our softwares, not on Airbnb or anywhere else, because it creates price imperfection. One of my students was losing a ton of money. He's like, Sean, I've got this listing in Tennessee that sleeps 6 people. It's this really nice listing and it's having a hard time, but I've got this listing that sleeps 3 people. And ever since I've added this hot tub and massage chair, it's doing better than the one that sleeps 6. But the one that sleeps 6 had a hot tub too. And gosh, I spent 45 minutes trying to fix this listing, looking at every possible reason why his competitors could be beating him, and even more so, why is his little listing beating his bigger one? It just made no sense. And then I realized something. The one that sleeps 3 has 1 king bed and a couch. No one is searching for 3 people. He's only getting bookings for 2. The one that sleeps 6 could be 2, 4, 5, 6. And he had a price per person of $100 per night per person starting at 3 guests. So his small one is like $200 a night. But for 3 people, it'd be $300 a night. His bigger one was $350 a night or something like that. And going up to 6 increased it by $400 per night. That's a massive swing. I've seen my students come to me losing their shirts over a $45 swing, let alone $100. He was attractive for 2 guests and he got bookings for 2 guests. The one that slept 6, he was slightly too expensive for 2 guests or 3 guests. And when people searched for 4 or 5 or 6, he was way too expensive. This type of price inefficiency hurts us on 2 sides. In peak season, when rates go up, you might have a small group of 3 that gets a $300 per night discount when you meant to charge the max, right? You thought you were going to get a booking for 6 people at this big price. But these early birds that planned ahead, that only had a group of 3, get your discount. And then in slow season, where you drop your rate to $10 a night because you can't get a booking. Well, now the group of 6 would book for maybe $200 a night, but you added 100 times 4, now you're $410. You have no ability to navigate slow season when you're charging $100 per night per person. Well, instead, set our rates based on our projected ideal group size, and that means in peak season, you can charge the max for the max group. And if a group that's half as big wants your place, it's peak season. They'll pay the price. They'll pay more. But in slow season, you're willing to take $150 for a group of 3, even though your house sleeps 8. And a group of 7 finds your place and pays that lower price, you're going to take the deal. Because also, let me remind you, your competitors are dropping their prices too. You could still lose the booking to somebody else. Everyone's rate plans are getting more aggressive in slow season. Everybody's learning this game. And the final boss of this video, the new rule for 2026, is that lower prices don't actually just always get more bookings. I think I've learned this one the hard way in 11 years, and one of my students has amazing properties in Nashville, and we ran a test that really proved me wrong. Like the 7 years ago version of me, so wrong about this industry. So here's what's up. You lower your prices, you get sketchier guests. We don't like that anyway. So the whole split strategy is cool. But also, you have a property that looks like it should be $500 a night, and it's in the $150 per night bin. There's going to be distrust there. People go, what's going on? Why is this nice listing only $150? Is this a phishing scam? It could be a scam. But further, even more so now, one thing I've realized about luxury clientele, when they go search, there's going to be a blind map style search where they load Nashville. There's going to be a box on the right with a bunch of bubble numbers. Some of those numbers are big, some of those numbers are small. Somebody with some money will look at all those numbers and then click on one based on what they want to pay relative to the data set. They're not going to click on the cheapest one, okay? They're going to pick something that's at least 30% up from the bottom price that they see. Something like that. That number is arbitrary, it could change. But what we can agree on is they're not picking the bottom one. Okay, I'm going to beat that dead horse for you in this example. And what happens then, if you're too cheap, the person that appreciates quality will skip your listing and you don't get the impression. Because they're navigating on the right, they're picking bubble prices based on where they'd like to be in the city, and they're picking price points that they think that they like. And then it brings up a box of the listing. If they like the hero photo, they click on the listing. They will never see you on the other side of the screen lined up in rows of 3 and notice that your banger hero photo also then has a cheaper price than expected. That's not how that search is going to go. Sometimes, yes, people will see your hero photo and then see your reviews and then go, wow, that's a steal value. Let me click on that listing. But many times, people are naturally searching on the right, looking at all the numbers and then clicking on a per bubble basis. So the test my student and I did in Nashville was when they have more than one luxury property available, they keep one at full price and they bring one down to like $250, $220. And I think their booking conversion is equal for both. So their ADR for last minute is better with the more expensive listing than the cheaper listing because there are people looking for the best of the best last minute still. So this takeaway for you, again, nuance, conditional, context here. Your market may have a bunch of cheap last minute travelers. Cool. Your market might have Abu Dhabi money last minute. Also cool. It's just important for us to know. So our last minute strategy can change. But going cheaper can build distrust and knock us out of search. Who would have thought? 7 years ago, I would not have thought that. So the 3-body problem, this is kind of wild, my friends. This is breaking news level stuff that's going to destroy people in 6 months or a year. And if you're watching this video through to the end, you deserve this little nugget. If you're using a channel manager and you're using a pricing software, you have 2 softwares that are not friends, and then you have AIRBNB. These are our 3 bodies. Airbnb channel manager pricing software. And the way that your prices work is your pricing software pushes a number into the channel manager, and that channel manager pushes the number to Airbnb. Airbnb lists those prices, whatever the final price is, and then there's a booking, including your cleaning fee and everything, there's a final price. Price Labs goes and looks at your bookings, at the final price, including your cleaning fee and everything else, divides that by the night, and has an ADR for the booking. So if you go into Price Labs, if you have it and hover over a reservation, you're going to notice that the reservation that you have, the ADR is higher than the nightly rate was, because it's reporting back a number that's different than the number that it sent through the channel manager and into Airbnb. I hope that just made sense, because it gets crazy from here. Airbnb's fee change, where they just made it so that way everything's coming off the top, 15.5%. Channel managers are trying to pick up the tab on this, okay? This is completely wrong. This is bad. Because again, here's what's gonna happen. Price Labs pushes a price, $200. Your channel manager says, let's raise that 20% or something. Now it's $240. Airbnb now has a rate of $240 plus cleaning fee. You get a 2-night booking for $700 after your cleaning fee. Price Labs sees that booking, divide 700 by 2, it then says that you got a booking for $350 ADR. Price Labs doesn't realize that the $200 that it had is the same as the $350 at the end. The cleaning fee and the price increase from the middleman is now going to confuse Price Labs. Do you see where this is going? What's going to happen is your entire market that uses Price Labs channel manager Airbnb is going to report 20%-ish higher ADRs. And Price Labs is going to think that it needs to raise your prices another 20% because the market has moved up 20%. But it doesn't know that that is representative of the third body in the relationship, that it is changing your rates in the middle and creating a blind shift from 200 to 240. If Price Labs was connected right to Airbnb, it would recognize rate plus cleaning fee, which is declared in Price Labs. They ask you that. And then it would feed this back. But this blind change in the middle is not line itemed anywhere. Price Labs doesn't have it in its brain. So it's going to build a ladder into the sky, and your rates are just going to go up like this because it cannot make sense of the fact that everybody in your market jumped 20% in a quarter. And I don't have access to Price Labs or Wheelhouse or Guesty GPO's pricing algorithms. It's possible that when they see everything jump 20% in a quarter, that they just think that everything's going crazy and your prices might go up 50%. Who knows? Because it also knows what it thought you should be, and what you ended up getting booked at was way more than projected. Their models could be all sorts of crazy. So even if you don't understand everything that I just said, because it's nerdy, it's so nerdy, and thanks for trying to listen, the moral of the story is you need to take that 15.5% increase that's in Guesty or HostAway or Hospitable, strip it from that, and just put it right into your base rate. That's it. So that way, Price Labs pushes a price, and it maintains signal integrity all the way through to Airbnb, and the number that it gets is the same as the number that goes out of Price Labs. And that way, it can properly calculate what's going on. And you might be one of the very few only hosts on the whole planet who does this right, and everybody else builds a ladder to the sky, and they don't get any bookings when everything breaks. It could be in 3 months, it could be in 9 months, it could be in a year. But I guarantee you this is a problem that we're all going to be talking about very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching this. Like I said, here's a playlist to learn pricing strategy, and here's one on the algorithm. If you want to know that price doesn't run everything, this algorithm video will help you there too. Thanks, my friends, and as always, I'll see you on the other side.